Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Belle again, and welcome to The Roads with Belle. Today is March 27th, 2025, and today we're going down the roads to questions from Patreon. There were so many that this will be divided into 2 episodes. So if you don't hear your question, it will be on the next one. All right. So, you've given us a lot of information of what is happening regarding current events. However, I don't think we've gotten much information on how to respond. Are you planning a shift in this direction? There's going to be more and more of that coming on this channel. We'll probably include snippets on the main channel, but most of that will be on here. Is there any chatter or thoughts about what would happen to Trump or his policies or his position if Putin was unavailable? Yes, this question presumes that Trump is very aligned to Putin for some reason. I think we'd see a pretty dramatic shift. Not just because of the potential relationship between Putin and Trump, but because if Putin were to become suddenly unavailable, the dynamics in the country would shift greatly. Most of the oligarchs don't share Putin's dream of Russian nationalism. They care about money, not nationalism. And the country is hit hard. It was hit hard economically throughout this whole war. So I do think there would just be great shifts. Belle, any chance we could get a visual tour of the ranch, or at least more detail on how green you are, e.g. solar panels, batteries, vegetable gardens, and recycling? Okay, so any new electric, like the gates, lights, outbuildings, etc., all of that is solar. Each instance is independent. Eventually, everything will be that way. The gardens change every year. Last year, it was potatoes, cantaloupes, beans, and pumpkins, maybe? I take care of heartbeats, but I do remember cantaloupes. And as far as recycling, here it's more repurpose, repair, reuse. And then we do have a compost. I'm never really sure what people want to know when they ask about this kind of stuff, but I think I touched on the solar and the garden. But hopefully that answered your question. Of course, I have to ask a question about number 47. What are the odds that he and the mad Doge morons start undoing anything electrical/solar the military is doing? I'm not sure that they would be successful with that. A lot of the reason the military is going that way is because it's better militarily. It'll be hard to unwind a lot of it because of the military benefits. Even the secret space plane, the X-37B, is involved in testing out solar tech. That's a strong indication that it's a top priority. So I think they'd have difficulty. What do you think is the best way for a person to literally put their money where their mouth is at this point? If after expenses and savings, I have an extra $100, how can I use it for the most good? Small local charities in my community, larger national charities that are semi-political, think Planned Parenthood or some of the legal organizations helping with immigration cases. Is it still worth donating to politicians? Is it more beneficial to pick 1 to 2 causes and focus on them? Is it helpful to respond to causes who have an immediate need or that are in the spotlight at the moment? Personally, right now, I'd focus on local resources. They're going to be in the most immediate need. A lot of times, causes that get into the spotlight, it's because they have a pressing need that's beyond the norm. So it's probably helpful to pay attention there. Okay. Last week, I was advised by my superannuation fund, our retirement funds, advised that my growth predictions were downgraded because of the volatility created by the Trump administration. If he's impacting us in Australia this soon, what is it like in the USA? Oh, all signs point to an economic downturn, but a lot of people are ignoring it or just assuming it will pass. All right, next question. Have y'all considered putting out any information about how to run for local elections? I've been toying with the idea of running for school district, but I feel underqualified, to say the least. Most of our videos on community networking directly transfer here. But more importantly, you feel underqualified? Have you seen some of the people that are up there? Not just that ran, but that actually won? Being well qualified isn't really part of the equation anymore. If you want it and you put in the work, you can learn and you can gain those skills. Community networking is a lot of it. You have to get out and meet people and get your name known and your face recognized and volunteer a lot. And you'll learn so much just by doing that. I say go for it and definitely don't feel like you're not qualified. You can do it. Do you think the way things are going that Trump will be successful in preventing a 2026 election? No, I don't think he has the power anymore. Okay. With all the insane ideas that Trump keeps coming up with, what is his primary goal? Oh, I think he's out to make money for himself, his friends, and his family. That would be my guess. Okay. Where should I go for summer vacation in Canada? I hear British Columbia is nice. I've kind of wanted to see the Northwest Territories, and I would love to go meet Reverend Ed and his family. Okay. Are we sure the U.S. isn't just treating Ukraine like the Kurds, where they aren't really an enemy or ally, but just want Ukraine to fight as long as possible to destabilize Russia? Seems to be a lot of flip-flopping from the administration on the whole thing. I don't see Trump making that play, but I could see some of his cabinet convincing him to do that. Can we be sure of that? No. But that isn't standard U.S. policy in this instance. It's more beneficial for Ukraine to win outright. Then with Trump, his foreign policy is too transactional for that to even be a thought. How much does Trump's talking of annexing Canada stem from the number of Americans hoping to seek refuge from his policies by fleeing to Canada? I don't think that's it. If he's serious about it, it's because Canada will likely be more resilient when it comes to climate change. Okay. What are the realistic chances that Social Security will be reduced or abolished? Reduced or altered, pretty high. Abolished, pretty slim. Next question. With everything that this administration is trying to do, and all of it being bad for the country, short and long term, without a good financial outlook for big businesses even, is this administration just out to flat destroy the country altogether? Because that's what it looks like from where I'm sitting. I honestly think Trump believes his moves will at least benefit his class. I think he's wrong, but I think that's his move. He's living in the 80s. What's the best chat app to use to plan military operations? Your high side email. If you're not using that, MySpace? Seriously. Do the rallies and protests, Resistance Rangers, Bernie, support for immigrants, support for post offices, etc., give you any hope, or are you waiting on Supreme Court cases to let yourself feel hope? I'm torn since everything feels scary right now. My sense of hope comes from the clock ticking down toward the midterms to hopefully be able to change some things. Midterms. Since Congress is scared to death of challenging Trump, the only thing standing between democracy and the oligarchy are courts. They are about to be challenged, so what will happen? There is no way of knowing what will happen if he truly disregards the courts. Okay. When Trump talks about raising tariffs and the stock market freaks out and goes down, then he reduces the amount of the tariff for a country or a product type and the stock market goes up. Is this a kind of insider trading? And is this something he is doing on purpose to look good for his MAGA people? I'm not sure this makes sense, but I feel like he is trying to mess up this economy on purpose for his benefit. Because if the dollar is devalued low enough, would he try to switch us to cryptocurrency? What are your thoughts? For it to be considered insider trading, you would have to show he was making stock moves in coordination with statements. I think people are assigning conspiracy to something that might just be living in the past and truly believing his dated economic ideas. Like, I feel he truly believes these are good ideas. Do you think there is a break the camel's back event coming, where something happens that can't be swept under? And what do you think it is? Thanks for all you guys do. Thank you. It's going to be the economy. I think it's going to be the economy. Trump is on track to triggering a downturn that he won't be able to blame on anybody else. It's one of the reasons that we keep continuing to cover the economy so much. People have said Canada would lose quickly against the U.S. military, and in conventional warfare, I'm sure that's true. But this discounts the fact that a successful invasion is just a prelude to the hard part, occupation. Plus, it completely ignores things like asymmetric warfare and hit-and-run guerrilla tactics. It also ignores the simple trick of retreating into a huge, word that starts with A, country with really harsh winters, a la Napoleon versus Russia. There is no such thing as a short war anymore, and for a war to actually occupy territory at this point is entirely based on the will of the defender. What are the chances that Democrats will take back Congress? I know the elections in Florida District 1 and 6 are taking place soon, as is another in New York. If they win those 3 seats back, what are the chances that something can be done to stop Trump and maybe even impeach him? That depends entirely on whether voters are willing to admit they were wrong, or that those who sat out the last election decide to show up. It's all going to be about voter turnout. And if they get back in, I doubt they'll impeach him, because even if he does do something worthy, they don't have the votes in the Senate. So I'm not sure that would happen. Okay, so I am going to wind it up and I'm going to hand you off to Dee.
Hi everyone, it's Dee, and let's jump into the questions. Question number 1. What is the likely outcome of the Florida special elections for Gay and Wheel? Thanks. Republicans are heavily favored, but really it's going to depend on voter turnout. Question number 2. How to write an effective message to senator, congressman opposing one or more current administration actions. What to say, not say. Express your position clearly in favor or opposed to a specific action. That's the biggest thing. Most don't actually read them all. They get counts of people in favor or opposed. Question number 3. I really don't quite understand the push to leave everything to the individual states, specifically the Department of Education. Isn't it good for there to be a government to standardize things to make sure all ships rise? How is this tied to states' rights? States' rights to teach their own version of history, science, math, etc. How is that a good thing? What about states too poor to properly care for their students? People I talk to will say states' rights, as if it's the end-all, be-all answer, and will brook no further discussion or criticism. I'm just so confused. You have to get deep into the talking points that got people to believe the federal agencies are bad. Most people don't actually think their state has the answers. They think their state can't do worse than the federal government. At the same time, most times the people who bought into this don't actually know what the federal agencies are supposed to do. There's going to be a lot of surprised people when they realize the curriculum for school is mostly done at the local level. Question number 4. It feels like it's been awful quiet about the special elections to the 119th Congress. Florida's 1st and 6th are just around the corner. Any chance for some liberal gains there? Why is Arizona's 7th not happening until late September? I think because they're ruby red districts. Democrats don't want to draw attention to them, so if they lose people, don't wrongly assume it's support for Trump's agenda. Different states have different timelines for special elections. Question number 5. Which state has the coolest license plates? I like Wyoming's. Question number 6. Seeing what Senator John Curtis said about not being honest about Social Security and implying big changes for younger workers, why don't Democrats propose raising the income limit so higher earners continue to pay in? For 2025, the tax maxes out for earners making more than $176,100. Would raising it to $250,000 save Social Security? It would be great to have an explainer for what trouble SSI is heading for in the future and ways to fix the problem. There's 100 ways to fix Social Security. The problem is that half of Congress just wants to say that it's broke and turn control of it over to private investors. And that looks like it for me. Now on to Dana.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Dana again, here to answer your questions, and we're just going to jump right in.
With all the bad things going on, what do you see as good things happening?
Here's some good news. It really looks like we reached the tipping point when it comes to the economic benefits of greener energy. Trump's policies won't undo the money motivator.
Dana, can you start doing a deep dive in each episode? I really enjoyed the Carrington event stuff in your last episode. I'm sending this privately because I have another question, and it's kind of personal, and it might seem creepy, but I think I met you. I'm sorry to put it this way, but do you have really big...
And we're stopping that message right there. First, the real question. Yes, I'm thinking about adding a little explainer to each episode. Not sure yet, though. Now to the next question. Seem creepy? It would if I didn't know exactly who you were talking about based on that description. No, that's not me, but I know her and can see why you would think we're the same person. Just a suggestion, but maybe next time try describing her as short with blue eyes, which I'm guessing you didn't notice.
I've seen a geologist on social media saying to stockpile food now, and warning about potential for food shortages down the road. Her point was that the crops currently rotting in the fields due to labor disruptions will leach nutrients out of the soil and cause problems in future growing seasons. Do you think that there is any merit to this, or is it someone stoking unfounded fears on the internet?
I mean, we always advise people to have some food on hand in case of disruptions, so I don't think that's bad advice. I'm not sure exactly she means based on what you've said, but generally farmers can amend the soil to compensate for issues.
Have there been any recent innovations or improvements regarding battery technology? Given how much of our push for green energy would require massive storage of electricity, are there paths forward for batteries that would require less hazardous extractive measures than for minerals such as lithium?
Well, there's been a lot of focus on battery recycling in the EV industry that will probably carry over. I know last summer researchers in Canada and South Korea had a cathode breakthrough, but haven't heard much about it since then. It seemed really promising, though.
My grandpa was in World War II. My family says he was a bombardier in Europe. Is there a way for me to look up his service record?
As long as Grandpa separated from the military more than 62 years ago, you can check out the National Personnel Records Center. They might have a way to access his records.
Can you discuss some of the long-term consequences of the U.S. failing to hold the administration and many of its less law-abiding members to account? People talk about corruption and oligarchy, but I don't think the consequences are explained bluntly enough. The military degrading because advanced equipment is advertised but never developed. The normalization of bribery for routine public services. Crumbling infrastructure. A steady decline in standard of living and average lifespans. Commodities becoming both more expensive and of poorer, sometimes dangerous quality. None of this out of a deliberate master plan, instead all of it because the administration really is just that dumb.
Well, you just did a pretty good job giving an overview. Despite some of the investment in green energy reaching a tipping point, there's also a lot of climate harms. Okay, I stole this next one from Belle's list.
Did you know that from an astrology perspective, this time of upheaval has been predicted for some time? Primarily because one of the most powerful planets, Pluto, just finished its 252-year cycle around the Sun and is back to the same place where it was for the American Revolution and just moved into Aquarius. Anyways, astrologers and spiritual woo-woo people, of whom I am one, have long acknowledged this time as probably leading to a people-powered revolution. It seems like that is the energy slowly growing around us. Any thoughts on this?
Obviously, it's me. I'm the science and tech girl, so I don't put any stock into astrology at all. I just found this interesting because there's also a common belief that generalizes empires as lasting about the same amount of time. I find these kinds of beliefs interesting not because I believe them, but because scientifically, if enough people believe them, people will alter their behavior in accordance with that belief, and it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm all about seeing a thought shift that puts people first. So come on, Pluto.
If you had to name up to 3 different types of vocations or backgrounds that state or federal legislatures could benefit from having more representation of among elected officials, which would you pick and why?
Scientists, nonprofit workers, and working class people. I think we need more data-driven decision-making, but if you have a bunch of scientists who sometimes just start seeing numbers and data and forget about the people they represent, it could go bad. So we need some compassionate nonprofit workers to balance things out. And then we need some working class people because, well, it's our country.
Are parents aware of a honey trap being set for their high school students? Scammers initiate contact through social media and offer to complete online homework, write papers, etc. for a fee. They then attempt to extort more money from the student by threatening to reveal them as a cheater to parents and school. Sometimes the extortion includes a demand for personal information, social security number, date of birth, etc.
They're aware of it now because of your message. I did some digging and actually found a few news reports about stuff like this. And now back to Belle.
So, there you have it. A little more information, a little more context, and having the right information will make all the difference. Y'all have a good day.